This segment of Delmarva Life is brought to you by For All Seasons Behavioral Health and Rape Crisis Center.
How are you? It's a question we sometimes dismiss or answer quickly. But the last year has certainly given us time and space to pause and really think about it.
In all of the negative circumstances caused by COVID, those in the mental health field say one positive is that more of us have focused on taking care of our minds. Delmarva Life's Katie Zerilli shares thoughts from For All Seasons CEO Beth Ann Langrel.
While COVID-19 has been the cause of so much loss, it should be noted that this pandemic has put mental health on the map.
We've seen over 1,100 new patients come through our doors in the last year. And what's really happened over this past year is that we all can say, even if we were in the best mental health place ever a year ago, we all can say we've experienced something different this year.
Beth Ann Langrel is the CEO at For All Seasons in Easton. The Behavioral Health and Rape Crisis Center serves 5 Midshore counties. Folks here see a bright side to what's certainly been a darker year.
For us, there is a little bit of celebration, so to speak, that people are actually able to reach out and say, I'm not doing okay.
Beth Ann says what happened was folks became more aware of the anxiety and stress they were experiencing on a daily basis, whether it had to do with COVID or not.
What was manageable for folks with 1 or 2 items really being difficult to manage, when you add 5 or 6 onto that, that's where we start to see people's issues look a little bit different.
COVID has, however, caused questions that have evolved since the beginning. Right now, they have to do with the vaccine.
I mean, there's certainly folks who are struggling with believing the vaccinations are going to be helpful. You know, you've heard random things that, you know, people are concerned about what's going to happen to their body if they take the vaccine, or people, you know, even in the offices that I have worked within, we have seen folks say, I'll let you do it first and see how it works out, and then maybe I'll take it, or maybe I won't do it at all.
Beth Ann says whatever the mental struggle may be, For All Seasons strives to be that place where people can, quote unquote, dump their stuff. For some, that stuff is an unfamiliar grieving process after the loss of a loved one. With gatherings restricted, funerals aren't looking the same.
Figuring out how to put closure in a situation where grief is present becomes really difficult, and you have to really reimagine what that process looks like.
It's similar for the younger generation who lost sports seasons, graduations, or even just time with their peers.
The ability for our young people, and even for adults, to say, this is not what it was supposed to look like. This is not how it was supposed to be. And for us as humans to be able to say, this was really hard. This is really difficult. It's okay, and we don't have to be ashamed of being disappointed. And our children don't have to worry about saying, I'm sad. It's really important that our children learn to say the words, I'm sad and this is upsetting to me.
Beth Ann says it's healthy for all of us to pause and process these feelings, questions, and concerns. And the amount of time that takes is different for everybody.
I think the beauty of the therapeutic relationship between a clinician and a person seeking services is that they get to make those decisions together. And so it's the ability to be able to put a treatment plan in place and look at the goals and look at how a person is doing and be able to make the decision as to what's best.
Maybe you're in therapy for 6 months, maybe 6 years. What matters most is you building the skills that help you battle the unexpected.
We're going to turn our attention to how we can incorporate what we learned over the last 12 or so months into the future.
For All Seasons CEO Beth Ann Langrel says 2 key words are grace and understanding. Here's Delmarva Life's Katie Zerilli.
With COVID compelling more and more of us to seek mental health services, one might wonder, has that overwhelmed those who work in the profession? For All Seasons CEO Beth Ann Langrel says, not a bit.
I have my master's in counseling and a specialty in crisis management. So for me, it's my wheelhouse.
And she's got a team that fearlessly took on and continues to take on each and every task.
I'm super fortunate to work with a group of people that give it their all, and everybody sort of took their part, and then to be able to serve as such an important part of our county's response team through COVID. I continue to sit on the COVID response team, and we really learned how to do partnership a little bit differently through COVID. We'd all worked together before, but there was a whole different level of digging in.
She learned lessons on an individual level too.
And I think the number one thing for me that I have personally learned through this pandemic is the power of accepting someone's help. It not only makes a difference for you as a person, but it also makes a difference for them to be able to provide assistance.
Chances are we can all pull out something that the last year has taught us, something that going forward we won't want to forget.
There's so many ways that we as a community can connect differently and really take the effort to say, I don't want to go back to a place where I didn't feel like I had enough time for my family, or I didn't feel like I had enough time for dinner. So maybe as things reopen, you can't imagine yourself having 7 dinners at the kitchen table, but maybe you can imagine yourself having 1. And so start there and see where that goes.
The big concept there is grace. As we take steps towards getting back to a collective normal, Beth Ann says having understanding for yourself and for others is going to be crucial.
I think the number one thing that we have to do as a community is be okay with where people are and not make people feel as though they need to explain why they aren't comfortable.
And those comfort levels are going to be different for everyone in every situation.
It might feel really strange the first time you go into a restaurant, or you might get an invitation to an event and say, I'm not ready yet. And it's okay for us as humans to do what we need to do in that time frame. And it's just as important, you know, if you and I were out at an event together and you said, I'm not comfortable, it's just as important that I don't put you in a position that makes you feel awkward or feel like you've done something wrong because you're taking care of you.
We could all certainly say we've learned patience over the last year, and in the days, weeks, and months ahead, we're going to have to put it into practice.
It's a slow and steady wins the race. And so while we are all more than ready for things to open back up and we want to go from 0 to 10, it's really important to remember that we do need to be mindful that it's going to take some time.
We must be diligent about being compassionate, she says, as if it's our duty.
Everyone's not going to take it at the same pace, and our responsibility as neighbors and friends is to provide other people the space and opportunity to be at their pace and us be accepting without judgment of how things are working.
Together, we've endured this pandemic. Together, we will move forward.
And if you're interested in services at For All Seasons, head to DelmarvaLife.com for more details.